Let me start the recording. All right. Well, hello, everybody. It's nice seeing everyone again. Everybody doing well?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Hearing.
You do it just like you. Sometimes it's just in my head.
Yeah. Just sort of float in and out halfway.
I'm a ghost.
All right.
Uh-oh.
Well, welcome once again to week 2 of a study on the book of Ruth. To recap a little, I have my little slideshow. We have chapter 1. There was a famine in Bethlehem. Elimelech, Naomi, and her sons left Bethlehem to go to Moab. Now, Moab was not a good place. Instead, in Deuteronomy, it says, no Ammonite or Moabite or any of their descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord or even the 10th generation. Not a good place to be in. You don't want to go there. However, these sons married Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. And I found out last week that Oprah is named after Orpah. Didn't know, but it was brought to my attention last week. So, cool little tidbit of trivia. Hold on, we got one more coming in.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hey.
Well, you're just catching up on the recap. As mentioned last week, Hebrew names are often descriptive and instead of actual. For example, the two kids' names, Mahan and Kilion, meant sickness and wasting away. So if anybody did name their kids those in actual names, they're kind of cruel. They're mean. But that's what these people did, or that's what the story tells us. The husband and the sons died, leaving the women in total desolate state. And the way things were set up back then, these women weren't really able to buy or sell or do anything. So at first, the ladies say that they're going to stay with Naomi. But she insists they leave because she said, even if I get married tomorrow, have a kid, what are you going to do? Wait 9 months and then wait for the kid to be grown up to get married? This is silly. Just go. And Orpah leaves. And we don't hear from her again. Ruth, on the other hand, she stays and she says a very famous quote that a lot of people like to quote, where you go, I'll go, where you stay, I'll stay, your people will be my people, your God will be my God, where you die, I'll die. And it is a pretty cool quote as scriptures go. I kind of like it. But upon return to Bethlehem, the people are amazed that Naomi, we got one more coming in. We got people straggling in.
That's all right.
Yeah, it works out great for me. Did, who was it last week that had trouble with the audio?
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Ah, did anybody get her the phone numbers?
I'm sure she got the emails.
Okay.
She's still bouncing back and forth between Huntsville and Union Grove house.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure everybody can hear. But upon return to Bethlehem, the people are amazed that Naomi returned. That's the first one. And then the second one is they kind of were amazed that she brought back a Moabite woman named Ruth. So Naomi is hurting and bitter. She just lost her husband and her 2 children, and she kind of tells everybody about it when they say, don't call me Naomi. So they go to her relative's house named Boaz, and it's determined to glean. They glean the fields, which was kind of dangerous because women could be raped. They could be hurt. These fields were however many acres you can imagine, wide open space. And the people working there, they just were working there. Some of them were slaves. Some of them were servants. Boaz saw her, wondered who she was, and immediately began to take care of her. He gave her food to eat, oil, water, and he praised her for sticking with Naomi, which I didn't mention that last week, but I should have. He kind of said, good for you. You stuck it out. You're hanging in there. And that's my paraphrase of that. If you want to read that part in chapter 2, it's there. But then he instructed her to stay in the field, and he told his servants to leave her alone, to don't mess with her, to leave her alone. But then he also said, while you're gleaning in the fields, grab a handful and throw it on the ground for her extra to her have. And that is where we left off. So let me get to it in my book. So at verse 17 is where I'm picking up. So if you have a Bible or iPhone or tablet or whatever version of text you want to use. So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley, she gathered, and it amounted to about an ephah. And that ephah meant about 30 pounds. She carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one whose place she had been working. "The name of the man I worked for today is Boaz." "The Lord bless him," Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She added, "That man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers," or that Hebrew word that I said about last week called kinsman redeemer. Then Ruth, the Moabite, said, "He even said to me, 'Stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all the grain.'" So Naomi said to Ruth, "It will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work with him, because in someone else's field you might be harmed." So Ruth stayed close to the woman of Boaz to glean the barley, wheat until the harvesters were finished, and then she continued to live with her mother-in-law. So she went home, and after a day's work, she found about 30 pounds of grain. And that's kind of where, as I mentioned, they already kind of started taking care of her. Any questions thus far that we've gotten? Pretty self-explanatory, right? Chapter 3. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose woman you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, get dressed in your best clothes, then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you're there until he's finished eating or drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he's lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." Who remembers some of the key words I gave last week? So we have this setting where Naomi has saw that Ruth is kind of being well taken care of. She sees that this guy is liking her a little bit. So she says, "Hey, we can't keep just doing this forever. I got to make sure that you're going to be well taken care of. And this Boaz guy, he's one of our relatives, and he seems to be doing the good thing anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to get good and dolled up. We're going to put on the right perfume. We're going to put on nice clothes. And he's going to be working. He's going to be sweaty. He's going to be tired. And he's going to go lay down. And when he lays down, don't tell him you're there. Then go uncover the place of his feet. And he's going to tell you what to do." Now, I saw some chuckles. We all know, or at least Bob, you're fading in and out in that digital background. It's kind of funny.
Spirit.
I mean, he's like disappearing in the digital. It's like,
Yeah.
back to subject anyway. So tell me, what do y'all think of this? What's Naomi doing here?
She's just reducing the distance between Ruth and Boaz.
It sounds like she's kind of setting up something that was already rolling in place anyway, right?
That's true.
She's asking him to
What's that?
take care of her. She's asking him to take care of her.
She's doing a little more. She's basically going to, back in these days, you didn't have, legal proposals. You didn't have going to the courthouse. She was basically setting her up to say, you need to ask this guy to be your kinsman redeemer. You need to ask this guy to marry you, to take care of you, to come in your place. And that was kind of a bold move for a female to do in that time. But she was doing it on a slick way. I mean, that's one of my favorite ones. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. I mean, come on now. What a way to get going. I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. So again, you have to remember there is a bit of Hebrew imagery here. And I mentioned that this is PG-13, right? We all are clear there. So imagine a little grain pile, a mound of some nature, and he's laying there. He's tired, and he's in a good mood. She approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and laid down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. And he said, "Who are you?" "I am your servant Ruth." She said, "Spread your cover, the corner of your garment over me, since you are the kinsman redeemer of my family." So she's kind of making a pretty bold move here. What do you think? I mean, Boaz is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. He has a woman where he's laying down and at least saying, uncovering the place of his feet, whether it be literal or whether it be that metaphorical term that we talked about before, and saying, throw the rest of your garment on me and take care of me. Kind of putting him on the spot a little bit. But he says, "Who are you?" Or wait a minute, I missed a verse. He said, "The Lord bless you, my daughter," he replied. "The kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, which, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am the kinsman redeemer of our family, there is another more closely than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as the kinsman redeemer, good. Let him do so." So I'm going to stop here for a minute, because this is the part that I have a question mark. So she basically says, I need you to take care of me. I need you to be the kinsman redeemer. I need you to marry me. And by the way, back then, just getting married meant having sex. So that was basically what happened there. He didn't send her away. He said, stay here for the night. Why do you think he kept her there for the night? Any ideas?
Is it part of the Hebrew tradition that if you do that for the night, the duration of the night, then it's kind of sealed?
But he said he wasn't going to yet. He said there was another person in line before him. He said, it's true, I am your kinsman redeemer, but there's somebody else before me, but stay here the night.
To protect her.
What's that? Somebody went quiet on me.
I said maybe to protect her. He had told her to glean in his fields so she'd be safe, and told his servants not to mess with her. So probably the same reason.
That's a good reason.
You find a strange woman wandering around and someone's drunk and tired, you want to keep her safe.
Yeah, that's good. Because I actually don't believe anything happened, even though all the innuendo is there. She got dolled up. It makes you think that something definitely could have happened, especially since he didn't say or make sure she got home. He just said stay for the night. It's very well that you're right, that he just was very protective of her. And then he basically says there's somebody else in line. So I have to do what is right. I have to give them the opportunity first. And if they want to do it, great. If not, and if so, then they need to do so. If not, then I'll take care of things. But let's make sure that they'll do the right thing first. So she laid at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could recognize her. No one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. So why do you think he didn't want anybody to know?
So they wouldn't make assumptions that maybe she was not eligible to be married by this other kinsman redeemer.
You think maybe they would have thought the same thing I was kind of insinuating about why he didn't send her home?
Right.
Kind of what I think too, is he was kind of like, just make sure in the morning you leave first, because we don't want anybody thinking you're having this walk of shame that you're doing. He said, bring me the shawl that you're wearing and hold it out. When he did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. And then he went down to the town. And Ruth came to her mother-in-law. Naomi asked, how did it go? And she told her everything Boaz had did, and added, he gave me 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. And Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. So here we are. She is now proposed to him. He said, maybe. I don't know how patient I would have been, but she hangs in there. Maybe. All right. So Boaz went to the town gate. We're at chapter 4 now. Sat down there, just as the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned came along. Boaz said, come over here, my friend, sit down. So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 elders of the town and said, sit here. They did so. And then he said to him, Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to her relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. And if you redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, and I will. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I'm next in line. And he says, I will redeem it. Now, I think Boaz is playing a little trick here. Maybe y'all can disagree with me, because he did not mention that there's people. He didn't mention that there's Naomi. He didn't mention there's Ruth. He didn't mention any of that. He said, Elimelech died, and there's some land here. Would you want it? Because you're first in line for it. If you want it, you got it. And he says, sure, I'll take it. That's a deal. Then Boaz said, on the day that you buy it, you will also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead in his property. At this, he said, then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it, for I cannot do so. So he basically says that he can't do it because now it's too expensive. Taking care of somebody else, along with buying a piece of land, it just becomes too expensive. Hang on a minute. Okay, I've jumped. Then Boaz announced to the elders, today you are witnesses, and I have bought from Naomi all the property. I want to skip to something if I can find it. Or I say that. Let me look for something. Look for it in my computer because I can't find it in this particular translation that I'm using. What translations are y'all using, or do y'all have different ones?
NRSV.
RV, NRSV.
NIV.
NIV.
What are you looking for? We'll have a little race, see if you can find it.
Where he had to take off his sandal.
Yeah, we put it in ours.
Got it. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Now, this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, one took off a sandal and gave it to the other. This was the manner for attesting. Again, who remembers my little keywords that we had before? I can pull up the transcript if you want to. Do we know why we use a sandal now? Remember that euphemism I told you? Feet going into sandals, basic. And then she would get to spit in his face saying, you can keep your spit too. It was a very shameful thing that this man would not redeem this family. And it's not an unreasonable thing. He was saying, if I did it, it would cause me to go broke. But that didn't matter. It was, you did it because you took care of your family. But in what's fun is in the Hebrew text, that guy does not have a name. That guy's name is translated as to the guy so-and-so. It doesn't even give him a name. It just says the relative, whoever he is. And it's kind of interesting, to me at least. And then Boaz tells in front of all the elders, in front of everybody there, that he's going to redeem the land. He's going to, he says, we are witnesses. May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together brought up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephratah and be famous in Bethlehem. And may your name be like Perez and Tamar, who bore Judah. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The woman said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without kinsman or redeemer. And maybe he may be famous. And then it gives some genealogy, and it's some cool genealogy, because in this story, unlike some of the other Old Testament stories, God doesn't directly talk to anybody. God doesn't actually say the words from the Lord say this, like he would say in prophets, or it doesn't talk to people like Moses. Instead, you just see how kind of things fell in place. And in the end, Boaz redeemed Ruth, and then Ruth has a kid, and that kid is a direct descendant of David. So Ruth becomes the great grandmother of, it may be 4 greats in there, of David, who becomes the direct relative of Jesus, which leads to a couple of other things. One, a Moabite woman who would be considered rejected in Israelite times is now a part of the larger redemption story of all Christianity. To me, it's a really cool story. What do y'all think?
Well, you jazzed it up a little, see?
Yeah.
So when I tried to read it in my Bible with the little print, it really bored me.
So you like my little jazzed up version?
Yeah, that's pretty good though, actually. It you know,
There's a-
Anybody questions or ready to throw me out because I've just done some horrific things to the, no, I didn't really. The story's fun. I enjoyed that story. Imagine being in a seminary class reading this thing in Hebrew and you're figuring out what it's actually saying and you're like, oh my God, the Bible has some risque stuff to it. I mean, at least some innuendo. As I mentioned, I don't believe anything actually really happened out of line, but it really led that way for a minute. So next week, we'll have to come up with something else. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. I'm going to think about it for a minute, and then I will change
Okay.
it up. But
One of the things is this story has an awful lot packed in it about the culture of that time and the way they were doing it. I mean, it's just packed full almost every paragraph. You learn something about their customs and ways.
mhm.
and isn't that an interesting concept? Kind of we see a little bit of how people were living back then at that time and how we've kind of evolved from that. Definitely progressed.
Remember the story about the rich man that came to Jesus and asked him about how do I want to be a follower of yours. How do I do that? And Jesus said, just go sell everything you've got and follow me. And the man said, well, I can't do that because I've got a family, and they all depend on me. And he said something to the effect that, and I forget exactly how he said it, but basically he said, you're not willing to pay the price to follow me, or you're not willing to do the sacrifices required to follow me. And I see a parallel here in that, Boaz, kind of the redeemer, said to this other guy, here's the opportunity now for you to buy this land, but you also have to take on these other responsibilities. And he said, no, I can't do that. If I do that, then I'm going to give up my family and my wealth and all this. So I see a parallel here.
See, I didn't register that parallel, but that is a really good point because the other guy wasn't willing to pay the price and it brought great shame to him. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming week 2. Like I said, I'm going to come up with something for next week. I figured it would take 2 or 3, but I didn't, but hey, it worked out pretty well. Are there any prayer requests or any concerns anybody has?
My husband talked to his heart doctor today, and they decided on which surgery they're going to do. It's going to be just a short incision up here to go ahead and put that catheter in. So now we have to wait for a date and a bed.
How is that? Is that coming to be a problem?
At
Waiting?
Huntsville Hospital? Yeah.
Is it that bad of a wait right now?
I think so.
Yeah, that's
Terrible.
You're just ahead.
Anybody else?
Okay, Janet.
The notice went out that Janet Anke's been moved to skilled nursing
Yes.
with open wounds on her legs, and
Saw that.
she's fallen out of bed a few times, and so she wants to go to assisted living, but with open wounds she can't, and so she may be stuck in skilled nursing.
It was Janet who?
Anke.
Onkey.
Spell that for me.
Onkey.
On key, just the way it sounds.
All right. I was thinking it might be something else.
Tom Lovell, I haven't heard anything more, but I think we ought to keep him in our prayers. And of course,
I've got an email. Let me give you all that. Let me tell you all about that because I get those emails. But yes, continue to pray for him. But I can tell you, Ben is doing a lot better as of Wednesday morning update from the Lovell family. As soon as this thing opens. Best news yet, the tracheotomy is working and Ben is now able to mouth words. He motioned for a word board and spelled out Anna so that the wonderful nurses set up a FaceTime between Ben Lovell and Anna Lovell, which lasted about 10 minutes. It's their first time to communicate with each other in the 14 days since this nightmare began. Ben is scheduled for clavicle surgery this morning, so keep those prayers coming. For the first time in 2 weeks, we are breathing a bit easier and feeling that our boy is going to make it. And what is my